watching TV a second. Do you remember how Daddy died in a POW camp?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this here is Captain Coons. He knew Daddy in the POW camp.
Hello, little man. Boy, I sure have heard a lot about you. See, I was a good friend of your daddy's. We were in that hellhole pit of Hanoi for over 5 years together. Hopefully you'll never have to experience this yourself, but when you're in that situation for so long the way we were, you take on certain responsibilities for each other. And see, if it had been Major Coolidge and not me who'd made it, then he'd be here right now talking to my son Jim.
But the way it worked out, I'm talking to you, Butch.
I got something for you. This watch I got here was first purchased by your great-granddaddy. It was bought during the First World War in a little general store in Knoxville, Tennessee. It was bought by Private Doughboy Ernie Coolidge the day he set sail for Paris. It was your great-granddaddy's war watch, made by the first company to ever make wristwatches. You see, up until that point, people just carried around pocket watches. Your great-granddaddy wore this watch every day he was in the war. And when he'd done his duty to his country, he went home to your great-grandmother, took off this wristwatch and put it in an old coffee can.
And in that can it stayed till your grandfather, Dane Coolidge, was called upon by his country to go overseas and fight the Germans once again.
And this time, they called it World War II. Your great-granddaddy gave this to your granddad for good luck. Unfortunately, Dane's luck wasn't as good as his old man's. Your granddad was a Marine, and he was killed with all the other Marines at the Battle of Wake Island. Your granddad was facing certain death, and he knew it. None of those boys had any illusions about ever leaving that island alive. 3 days before the Japanese attacked, your 22-year-old grandfather asked his gunner in the Air Force transport named Wanaki, a man he'd never met before in his life, to deliver to his infant son, who he'd never seen in the flesh, his gold watch. 3 days later, your grandfather was dead, but Wanaki kept his word.
After the war was over, he paid a visit to your grandmother, delivering to your infant father his dad's gold watch.
This watch. This watch was on your daddy's wrist when he was shot down over Hanoi. He was captured and put in a Vietnamese prison camp. Now, he knew if they ever saw it, this watch would be confiscated. And the way your daddy looked at it, this watch was your birthright. And he'd rather die than let them put their hands on his boy's birthright. So he hid it in the one place he knew he could hide something of his, well, let's just say somewhere close to him.
Like his heart?
No, son. Let's just say somewhere a little further south. 5 long years he wore this watch up in his special place. Then when he died of dysentery, he gave the watch to me. And I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal close to me for 2 years. That's 7 years total. Then, after the 7 years, I was sent home to my family. And now, little man, give this watch to you.
It's time, Butch.
Don't know my lines.
That's okay.
Knoxville, Tennessee. Knoxville, Tennessee. This watch was on your granddaddy's wrist. No, daddy's wrist, not granddaddy. Let's do the handoff one more time.